Mob life has its ups and downs, constantly looking over your shoulder, making risky deals, and trying to work your way to the top. But that's only shadowed by the large amounts of money, luxury cars, big houses, and upper-class dining every night of the week. If you've got the money, flaunt it. At least that's what these guys felt. Clothes don't make the man, but expensive suits and always looking the part play a big role in the persona of these mob guys. Whether you're on a contracted hit or sipping espresso at a cafe, suited and booted is the way to go. These guys had it all, from style, class, charisma, and tons of power and respect. We've suited up here at thenationalcrimesyndicate.com to bring you another original web documentary. So grab some popcorn, kick back, and enjoy the top 10 best dressed mobsters of all time. Making his way at number 10, we have Joe Adonis. Adonis was an instrumental part of the early days of the National Crime Syndicate and helped the likes of Luciano and Lansky take control of the Mafia. He removed Joe the Boss and Sal Maranzano, forming the modern-day Cosa Nostra. Adonis wasn't his real name, however, and we aren't 100% sure where he got the name from, but speculation has it that he adopted it himself. Adonis spent a great deal of time on his personal appearance with daily grooming routines. On one occasion, it's said that Luciano caught Adonis combing his hair in front of a mirror and asked him, "Who do you think you are, Rudolph Valentino?" Adonis replied, "For looks, that guy's a bum." You would always see Adonis wearing a fedora and the finest suits New York had to offer. He was always well presented and without a hair out of place on his head, which is why our hats off to Joe Adonis, coming in at number 10. Coming in at number 9, Paul Castellano. John Gotti summed up Big Paul by saying that he was just a businessman and never served his time on the street, which is why someone who cared more about the materialistic things in life comes in at 9th on our list, one of which was his appearance. As a business person, Castellano was always dressed for the limelight, spotted in a suit in almost every photograph of him that was taken. Some might even speculate that he slept in his suits. As a mob boss, he can afford anything in life, and he ended up dead on the street just before tucking into a steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan. Coming in at number 8, Jim Colosimo. Big Jim may have been assassinated as early as 1920, but he still made an impact in the Mustache Pete era of the Mafia. He was most famous for being the boss of what we call the Chicago Outfit, as well as being known for his restaurant located at 2126 between 2128 South Wabash, Chicago. As you can see from the photos on the screen, he was always a well-dressed character, sporting a flat cap, suit, leather gloves, and sometimes pictured with a cane. Number 7. Lepke Buchalter, the Murder Inc. crime boss who ended up on the Sing Sing electric chair in 1944 due to a mobster-turned-informant, Abe Relis. Lepke, whose actual name was Lewis, would often be seen suited and booted, complete with the stereotypical mob hat and everything else to boot. He would also complete his look with a handkerchief in his suit pocket and matching overcoat, which you can see in the photo on the screen. Whether he was being escorted by his cronies into a courtroom meeting, smiling at the camera, or giving a ruthless look, he was always dressed to impress. Number 6. Al Capone. One of the most notorious mobsters of the early 20th century, made famous for his violent temper and scarred down his face, giving him the nickname Scarface. Most photos show Capone with a cigar in his mouth and a felt Panama hat. Capone also wore a gold pocket watch, complete with chain, which was clear to see against the tone of his charcoal suits. Despite having scars down his face, personal appearance meant a lot to Capone, and he would ask the cameraman to always take photos of the right side of his face rather than the scarred left, as you can see here in one of the photo portraits. Coming in at the half point of our list, Bugsy Siegel. If Bugsy wasn't a mobster, he would have fitted right into the 1940s Hollywood actors scene. He was a charismatic character who charmed the ladies and had film star good looks. Underneath, however, was a darker side, as he was one of the mob's more violent members. Wherever Bugsy was, he was always dressed to wow the crowds, whether he was wearing his famous polka dot suit, completed with handkerchief and pinky ring, or to sporting a pinstripe suit and donning Panama hat. He always looked like he meant business. Heck, he even died looking dapper. Number 4. Meyer Lansky. The mob's accountant Meyer Lansky, who was the brains behind the Mafia in its most important era, wasn't just Lucky Luciano's sidekick. He was the mastermind behind the casinos both in the US and Cuba. Being such a prominent character, it goes without saying that Lansky was always well dressed. He had the mob's best interests at heart, and he knew how to evolve the Mafia. Without him, it would have been a totally different story. Preferring the cigarette to cigar, Lansky would have been seen in charcoal suits, sometimes with his Panama hat. In one photo, you can see that he swaps the ever-present tie with a bow tie. Number 3. Frank Costello. The Prime Minister of the Underworld, aka Frank Costello, had politicians, judges, policemen, and mayors in his hand. He was influential in many decisions that changed history and changed the way the Mafia evolved in the US. From a major gambling empire through to elections, he was one of the most powerful mob bosses to have lived. Costello craved the respectability of high society, so he agreed to testify at the Kefauver hearings and not to take the Fifth Amendment. Dressed in a gray suit with a handkerchief in his left suit pocket, Costello looked a noble figure. His hat was also made famous, as it was worn at the time Vincent Gigante took a shot at him, which ripped through his hat but only grazed his head. Number 2. Charles Luciano. Better known as Lucky Luciano was the founding father of organized crime after he successfully planned the assassination of old-time bosses Joe the Boss and Sal Maranzano. It was after these hits a new era of the Mafia began, with a commission and structure to the families. Luciano turned crime into a fully fledged business model, and if he weren't in the life of crime, he would have made a great CEO at a major company. As the boss of bosses, Luciano had to be taken seriously. Heads would turn as he walked down the street, with some thinking he was an A-list celebrity and not a crime boss. Lucky would sport the finest pinstripe suits, completed with Panama hat. He always made sure he looked dapper, and even in his aging days, he still looked smart, as this photo of him relaxing at home shows. Coming in at number 1. The Dapper Don, John Gotti. John Gotti is one of the more talked about mobsters of the late 20th century, a crime boss who enjoyed all the limelight and managed to duck out of criminal charges, which brought his nickname the Teflon Don. He broke many old-time rituals and Mafia rules, and some say the Mafia fell apart because of him. Truth is, whether you like or hate John Gotti, he was a good dresser, and he had been stereotyped as your typical Mafia Don, bringing the Godfather to life. However, it's his second nickname that we're focusing on, the Dapper Don. Gotti wore suits that cost thousands of dollars, and as the pictures show, he's in several different suits. He would finish off any look with his clean-pressed suits, handkerchief in pocket, pinky ring, hair neatly swept back, and sometimes an expensive cashmere scarf, which easily classifies him as the best-dressed mobster on our top 10 list. This brings us to the end of the top 10 countdown on the best-dressed mobsters of all time. We hope you've enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more documentaries and original web series right here on thenationalcrimesyndicate.com. You're now rocking with the best, NCS Costa Nostra.
Welcome to the Sting of Oz.
The search is over. Every series helps bring you a step closer to the life of the mob without dangerous exposure of what went down, plus Mobster of the Month. Original content if you're searching on a hunt for the who's who, or the best dressed guy, the type of guns they use, the fuse and mob wire. We supply everything as soon as you log on to the National Crime Syndicate.com. From John Gotti to Don, back to Mustache Pete, Big Joe, Al Capone, and Meyer Lansky. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, cause the code of silence here no longer applies. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned in, cause over here we like to keep this thing moving.